Good morning, everyone. Looks like we're at 10 o'clock. Usually people still dribble in for a few minutes afterward, but why don't we go ahead and get started so we can take advantage of Ed and Jim here to really figure things out for winter preparedness, okay? My name's Mike Thompson. I'm the Triad coordinator here in Madison. Let me just introduce very briefly our presenters for today. Ed Ruckriegel, the Fire Marshal for the City of Madison and its Emergency Operations Coordinator, is going to start off the presentation, and then it's going to be followed by Jim Jenkins, who's a retired law enforcement officer. And are you still working, Jim, with emergency preparedness with the Red Cross?
Well, I did about 15 years before and after my retirement with the Red Cross, but I've retired from that as well now.
Oh, okay. But you haven't lost your mind when it comes to being prepared, right?
No, it's just that got pretty physical and my back isn't as good as it used to be. So.
Right. You know, your advice is still good for everyone.
Oh,
so
I hope so.
Why don't I turn it over to Ed and we'll get started, all righty?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning. Mike said, I'm Ed Ruckriegel. I'm the Fire Marshal with the City of Madison Fire Department. Also Emergency Management Coordinator for the city. It's been an interesting year for the city in terms of emergencies and emergency management. COVID has actually brought a reduction actually in the number of fires, you know, with people spending more time at home and what have you. We certainly see, I said in the number of fires and the number of responses, you know, when people are spending time at home, there are far fewer car crashes and slips and falls and those kinds of things. But, you know, one of the other things that we've seen with COVID is an increase in cooking fires. We have a lot of folks out there that just plain were not used to cooking. And with the shutdown of the restaurants and what have you, now they're home trying to learn how to cook. So across the country, there's been actually an uptick in the number of cooking fires. My other job, as I said, is emergency management coordinator, and our emergency operations center this is the longest activation of our emergency operations center ever. Actually, we activated our emergency operations center in early March, and we continue to meet twice a week with emergency folks, mayor's office, department division heads within the city, county folks, and then state emergency management as well. And we're actually anticipating that to continue for, you know, at least another 6 months. A little about myself. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. I joined the volunteer fire department down there in 1979. So yeah, that's more than 40 years in the fire service. Worked for Las Vegas Fire Department for a few years. And then in 1990, I came to the city of Madison to work as a fire protection engineer. And then in 94, I was promoted to the fire marshal. So yeah, I've been the City of Madison Fire Marshal since 1994. Wonderful career here, and we just love the city. My wife Darlene and I, we live down on the southwest side of Madison, and just cannot imagine living anywhere else. It's a great community, and you know, looking forward to retiring here. With that, I'll share my screen here and talk a little bit about winter preparedness and have you. So let me see if I can do this. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to talk about emergency preparedness today. You know, it's one of those things. Emergency preparedness is that whole idea of you know, there's really three aspects of emergency preparedness or emergency management that we talk about in the city, and it's you know, the whole idea of mitigation. So doing the prevention things that you need to do. You know, whether it was for the city, it's like flood mitigation and trying to prevent flooding. Well, I think in the individuals in the home, it's certainly fire safety and you know, home security and planning for, you know, winter and having some ice melt in the garage and all those kinds of things. That's kind of home preparedness or mitigation. And then having your plans. I'm going to talk a little bit about plans and why plans are so important. And then the response, you know, what do you do when something happens, you know, and then recovery. So for the city, of course, we look at recovering from large scale incidents and what have you. But I think it's also important for individuals to think about it from that perspective too. When something happens, how am I going to get back to some way of normal life after the event, whether it's in the home or external to the home. So, we always say that emergency preparedness really is really for everybody, every household, whether it's apartment, folks who live in apartments or condos or homes or whatever it is. You really should have a good plan for emergency management. Seniors are particularly important. We know based on lots of data that when the events happen, whether it's the tornado or it's the ice storm or whatever it might be, that seniors, people with disabilities, and then the homes of very young children are the most impacted. Again, that really spans all areas, and particularly fire safety. Seniors, people with disabilities, and homes with young children have the highest number of fire fatalities in the country. So it's just like I said, it's just where we're at with data. When they think about the city, I always that first bullet point is really important. It's not possible for any government to cover every person in every situation. It's we all think, oh, well, emergency management or FEMA or somebody's going to come in and help us through this disaster or through this. Yes, we will do what we can, but the reality of it is we can't do everything for everybody in every situation. And so that's why emergency planning and emergency preparedness is so important in the home and with your family. So you think about it. Do you go to the grocery store when a big storm is in the forecast? Yeah, that's kind of a popular thing here in Madison. That's part of preparedness, right? And also do any of you know someone that lived at the Prairie Park Apartments when that building flooded? That very, very sudden flooding, was that in 2018? I think it was August of 18. Those people were displaced for a long, long time. I'll tell a little story about that one. I think the flood happened on Monday night. They were without power, without fire alarm system, without elevators for a number of days. And then finally on, I think it was Thursday, after the city tried to get the property management company to, get things rolling and get things fixed up. And they just realized that the city realized that it was a much worse situation than what the property management company could even handle. So the city decided to evacuate the building then on Thursday. And people were, unfortunately, they were carried from their apartments by firefighters on the third floor. And some of them, many of them, were fortunate to have friends and family in the area and were able to go stay with them. But I think there were about 9 residents that took temporary shelter at the gym over at West High School. So I think it was about Wednesday the following week, I finally had time to stop in and just check on folks and have a conversation with the Red Cross. And it was interesting. I asked the Red Cross if the city, if people needed anything, if there's anything the city could do. And the strange answer was underwear. We need underwear for folks. And, it was really, really sad to see folks sitting in a gym for 5-6 days. And yeah, their essential needs were being taken care of. They were warm, they were being fed, their medications were there, their people were being taken care of for their basic needs. But the sad part of it is that they didn't have, even things that I think we all expect and take for advantage, simple things like underwear. So it's a very sad situation. And that's really one of the reasons, that situation is really what has inspired me to want to talk about these kinds of things, is that it's so important to be prepared. And the simplest, the most basic preparedness that all of us need are the 3 Ps: pets, pills, and purses, right? If you have a pet at home, please plan to take care of the pet. I could tell another long story about the situation in Wyoego, Wisconsin that, they put people, firefighters and police officers, in harm's way in order to go in and take care of pets. Speaking of pets, my dog just walked up and looking for attention. So pills also, that's another one. You know, we need to make sure that we have our medications with us, and have a few days supply in a ready bag or something to go out the door. And purses, you know, guys, when I say purses, that means more than really just what we think about it in terms of a purse. You know, that purse is your some cash, some, you know, credit cards, your insurance documentation, phone numbers, those kinds of things, those essential documents. Really what you need to have in a go bag at you know, something at your fingertips that you know, no matter what, I'm going to take these few things with me. Another aspect of emergency management is get informed and stay informed, right? We all have a means of getting emergency information. Not just, you know, I mean, on there it shows the weather radar, weather radio. That certainly is an important safety device in every home. So we know when there's severe weather on the doorstep. But, you know, what about other things? You know, do you have a means to be informed if the area is evacuated because of, say, you know, a gas leak or something? You know, we need to have that means to get informed, whether it's our cell phones or TV, radio. This is not not really a slam on the radio. There's not really a slam on local TV, but, you know, over the years we've seen like extreme heat, and the bottom of the TV screen will say, "Oh, go to our website for information on cooling centers." Well, some folks don't have internet. Some folks just are not savvy with you know, the internet and computers in order to go find where those cooling centers are. So we really need to have that process or that plan to get the information in every situation. We all need to know what we need to prepare for. You know, we all talk about, we all know the hazards, the flooding, the ice storms and tornadoes and all those kinds of things. You know, but your situation may be a little different from your neighbors. You know, if you have friends and family saying, you know, along the Florida coast where hurricanes are an issue, you know, might you become their emergency evacuation shelter should something happen, you know? So you should need to prepare for that, you know? Like I say, everybody's situation is a little different. Everybody has little different resources. You know, Darlene and I, we don't have family here in town. So our situation is going to be very different than somebody that has, you know, kids and close by family here in town. You need to know your situation, and you need to prepare for your situation. That third bullet point there about the personal support network, that is another thing that we have seen over the years through all sorts of emergencies. That personal support network is so important. You know, it's really necessary to have neighbors and friends close by that, you know, don't know, that know kind of your general, you know, routines, you know, whether it's, yeah, you know, you're a person that travels all over the country many times throughout the year. Well, they, you know, they see the house empty, they don't see it for a few days, they're not going to be too concerned. But if that other individual might be somebody that, you know, stays close to home and what have you, you know, you need to have that network of people that kind of know how to look out for you and you to look out for them. We've seen many cases where the, you know, positive outcomes are really the result of somebody just knowing that things are different or wrong or what have you. You know, like I say, I often talk about neighbors. Neighbors are really an important aspect of personal safety and personal support. A couple of things we want to talk about is, of course, we all talk about the tornadoes. We all should know what to do in the event of a tornado. That flooding of 2018, that was just unprecedented. I think that took the city off, took the city by surprise, and took many individuals by surprise. After that flooding, I went around with FEMA and did property evaluations and assessments to determine, really if folks were eligible for some type of FEMA assistance. And there were places that had substantial damage and flooding that, we all looked at it and said, how did that happen? Just so very, very unpredictable amount of water and the way those flood waters moved around the community. Ice storms are another one. We have been very, very fortunate in the Madison area. We've lived here since 1990, and we have not seen a significant ice storm. I understand there was one that happened back in 1977, something like that. But there was a storm down in Western Kentucky that blanketed Western Kentucky and Southern Illinois, parts of Tennessee, parts of Missouri, I believe it was, with like 1.5 inches of ice. It took down trees and power lines. People were without power for 3 and 4 weeks. I think that storm, if I recall correctly, there were 38 fatalities, and all of those fatalities occurred simply because people were using power emergency generators indoors. People didn't die from the ice storm, directly. It was the afterwards in that recovery process that they were using emergency generators incorrectly. Was it last year that we saw the big power outage downtown? Again, one of those things that happened on the hottest day of the year. If you happen to be a resident in a downtown building with elevators, you really need to have that plan to get out of the building without the use of an elevator, or any building that uses an elevator. How are you going to get out of the building without the use of an elevator? Snowstorms and blizzards, yeah, we're pretty familiar with that. We'll talk a little more about that later. Active shooter, unfortunately, that's a kind of a reality of something we have to think about nowadays. Police department does some wonderful presentations on active shooters and how to protect yourself. So, if you're out and about, and whether it's going to church or going to the grocery store, you should be very familiar with, those ways of keeping yourself safe during an active shooter event. Like I said, it's an unfortunate occurrence of our time or these days, but it is what it is, and we have to think about it. What else in your life? What else would you need to prepare for? I don't think we need to talk about hurricanes, earthquakes, and landslides too much. But you think about, as I said a minute ago, do you have friends or family that live in California that might want to come visit, come stay, and they need to come stay with you if there were an earthquake out there? So again, know and understand the threats or hazards in your community. So the basics of preparedness and plans. How will I receive information? We talked about that. Your phones automatically are alerted in the event of a tornado. That's a system. We have a system, the city has a system that we can use to alert all landlines in a geographic area, and then as well as cell phones in a geographic area. So with that technology, so I won't say it's a new technology, but it's just taken the city and the county some time to get the cell phone process, the plan, or purchase actually that contract with the company that does that. But now we do have that. So, as long as you have a cell phone, keep it with you at all times. That is a really good way of receiving information. What's your shelter plan? If you have to leave your home, your apartment, your condo this afternoon, where are you going? Are you going to, use the public shelters that the city would organize, or the Red Cross would manage? It's important. It's important to answer that question and to have a plan. Yes, the city and the Red Cross will have a shelter, but it's going to be basic needs. It's going to be a cot on a gym floor, and and they're going to provide you with food and water. They'll provide you with a blanket, and we'll work with local pharmacies to make sure that we can get you some medications. Again, it's basic kind of life safety stuff. It by no means is comfortable. So again, I think all of us really need a shelter plan. What's your evacuation? What is your evacuation route? You know, if you need to leave your home, are you familiar with the ways? Do you have a plan? And then what's your family household communication plan? That is really very, very important. You think about it, households with children nowadays, they have a communications plan. If the kids go to school and if something happens at school, something happens at work, they have a plan to talk. Darlene and I have talked about, you know, if something happens while I'm at work and she needs to leave, you know, the first thing she's going to do is head towards, we've talked about, head towards Platteville. You know, power goes out, head down to Platteville, find a hotel with power, and then then we'll talk about it. You know, we've also talked about if something happens during the day that she should go over to Fire Station 7. They all know me. They'll help her. They'll take care of her. We're a pretty tight family here in the fire department. You know, but what is your communication plan? We all need to think about those kinds of things. Is you know, something happens right now. How are you and your family, your spouse, your children, your neighbors? How are you going to communicate, and what are you going to do? It's so very, very important. Plans really need to be specific to your situation. Different ages of members within your household, responsibilities for assisting others, locations frequented. Again, you know, that kind of like the routines that I talked about a minute ago. What are the dietary needs? You know, if you have unique dietary needs, you may not get those unique dietary needs at a Red Cross shelter. Or maybe even if you have a plan to go spend time or shelter with friends, you know, your friends may not have those kinds of dietary supplies in your home, in their home, that you may need. So you need to think about those kinds of things. Prescriptions, you know, medical and prescriptions and medical equipment. Again, that's so very important that we have a plan to take care of those for ourselves. Folks with functional needs, including their devices and equipment that help them get around and about. You know, make sure you have a plan that your plan addresses those needs. And then also, you know, if you're in a household that does not speak English, how are you going to communicate with emergency responders? The city has really done a very good job. I want to say the city and county has really done a very good job with helping folks or making sure that we can meet those needs of the individuals in the community. We have good translators and we have telephone services. So, you know, in terms of communicating with emergency responders, that is not as much a concern today as it was, you know, say 7 or 10 years ago. There are cultural or religious considerations. You know, what are your cultural or religious needs that may or may not be met in a community shelter? Pets or service animals. Service animals would be welcome in a community shelter. However, pets are not. We do have a process or agreement with the Dane County Humane Society. The Humane Society will accept pets, your pets, during an emergency. They'll shelter them, feed them, take care of them, and then they'll return them to you, of course, after the event or once you can get back to your home. The problem with that agreement with the Humane Society is that they don't really provide transportation. We've worked out a process with the city public health department. You know, they offer the animal services in the community, so they would provide some transportation of those pets to the Humane Society. But we really would prefer that you have a process to take care of your pets rather than, you know, having us, the government, take care of the pets. And then considerations for households with school-age children are very different than what they are than, you know, from homes without children, is because, you know, we all have seen the last 9 months that that's a huge consideration, is providing continuing the educational process for kids and the challenges associated with that. As I said earlier, pets, pills, and purses, you know, We all should have an evacuation plan, short-term and long-term, a couple hours to several weeks. I mean, that sounds like a big task. It is a big task to come up with the evacuation plan long-term. But again, that's important to have that network. Always this plan for self-preservation. And that's really the very, very basics of it. You think about if you live in a apartment building or a condo building, something like that, those the large multifamily housing buildings, how are you gonna look out for yourself? How are you gonna get out of the building in all of those emergencies we talked about? And the reality of it is that, that next one, do not plan for rescue. Do not plan, you should not make that part of your plan. To have an area of rescue assistance, to plan to go into the bathroom for in the event of a fire, that's the last possible option. Your first in all of your many of your options should be other ways to get out of the building. The reality of it is, and I want to say that, and I say this because it's just the reality of it is, so many people think that in the event of a fire, oh, I can stay in my apartment, I can stay in my home, I can go back to the bedroom, close all the doors, put rags under the doors, have my phone, all of that. Those are good plans and good thinking, but when we go out on a structure fire or an alarm sounding to a multifamily, when we go on alarm sounding to a multifamily building, we send one engine with 4 people. If they get there and there's a structure fire, it's going to be 4 people there for another 5 to 7 minutes. 4 firefighters, and 4 firefighters cannot be expected to get into every apartment building and look for everyone. That's a huge labor-intensive process to search door to door, and takes a lot of firefighter resources. So I so strongly recommend that you really look out for yourself and have every possible opportunity to get out of the building when the alarm sounds, and what have you. Transportation, use all the resources available to you. Are there shelters? Yeah, the city will set up shelters, but are there other shelters that other places of evacuation that you could go? And then share your plan with those you trust. Make sure that your neighbors, if you have a good neighbor that you have a good relationship with and you trust, and your children and your friends, let them know where you're going to be and where you're going to go. And then the last thing is really practice the plan. Walk through leaving the building, walk through taking your pets' pills and purses with you. That's really, it's important. We train. I think everyone should have a go kit. I talked about that a little bit ago. What are the things you need to grab and go to get out of the house? What are the things that what are your essential needs if you're going to stay in your home for an extended period of time? If we have a large, a blizzard or a snowstorm where, you're not going to go anywhere for 4 or 5 days due to the conditions of the roads, you should have the things at home. Or you should have a stay kit, as I always call it. And then also something for your home, your office, and your automobile. Talk a little bit about survival kit essentials. I'm sure most of you have heard all of these. What probably should be in that list is a cell phone. It's not really part of the kit. It's not something you're going to put in a bag and leave there. But it's kind of the same thing with medications. You don't want to put medications in a box or a bag and leave it, but you need to make sure that when you need that stuff, that the medications get added to it, much like the cell phone. Cash is a big one. The event of a long-term power outage, you're not going to be able to go to the grocery store and use your debit card to pick up some bottled water. Cash is really how you're gonna pay for a lot of things. That I talked earlier about the personal support network. It's a group of people that you will help and who will help you. It's a group of individuals that you trust to look out for you, and they trust will look out for them. And also, I always say about that personal support network, it's great to assist during vacations and those little getaways. Somebody look out for your home, somebody get your mail, somebody to call you if the garage door is left open, all those things. It's not just about the big emergency or the big event that hits the community. It's about, I think it's really important about day in and day out living in a community. Talked a lot about the communications plan. Again, that's just, so important for each and every family, each and every household, whether you live with others or not. You really should have that communications plan so that you know who you're gonna call and who's gonna call looking out for you. Deciding to stay or go, this is a tough one. It really is, especially for individuals of limited mobility, individuals functional needs and that use assistive devices. It's from the fire perspective. I'm always going to say leave, go. If you think you need to go, you should go. And that really that second bullet point. If you think you should leave, you probably should have left 10 minutes ago. Think about that. I mean, to play catch up. We talk about that on the fire ground. If you think you need a second alarm, you should have asked for it 10 minutes ago because it's going to take 10 minutes for those additional resources to get there. Please listen to authorities. If the police department says to leave, if the police department says to go, same thing with fire. And then also follow your common sense. But, when it comes to a fire in a building, from the fire marshal perspective, we say leave. I'm paying attention to the time here because I'm getting close on Jim's time. In some situations, it may be safer to stay put than to enter something outside of the building that you know about. And that's why it's so important to know the hazards. And again, listen to the authorities. If you feel that it's okay if sheltering in place is the right thing, then it simply is the right thing for your situation. And in some situations, it is going to be the right thing. Like that flooding over there that I talked about in 2018. We wanted everybody to be home and stay home. You're far safer at home in a flood in most situations than out and about on the roads. Evacuating, leave means leave now. 10 minutes ago. Another thing is the fire department, we rescue people in harm's way. We do not evacuate buildings. And that's something we've heard about, several times. That people are so frustrated. Why didn't the fire department know everything was okay before they left? Well, our job is to get there, take care of the people, take care of the property, mitigate the hazard. And if somebody is in harm's way, we are going to communicate with them. We're going to rescue them as needed and what have you. But, we don't necessarily evacuate buildings. We want the occupants to evacuate the building. We want the employer, the building owner, we want them to evacuate the building. Again, the fire department's job is rescue. Take your pets' pills and purses, right? I think that's the third time I've said that. So it's important. Anticipate where you will go. And then again, practice it. Pets. This is a big one for all of us. What's best for you is typically the best for your pet. If you need to go, take your pet and go with your pet. The duration's often unknown. I mentioned the Wyoming incident. How many times remember the Katrina experience in New Orleans and the pets and the dogs on the roofs with the families? And I mean, the reality of it is the National Guard, the folks are going to come in and rescue the people. We're going to take care of the people and the pets if we can. In that situation, it just was not reasonable for the government to take care of the pets. We all realize as a fire person, as emergency manager, we know pets are people, or pets are part of the family. Yes, they are people to a lot of people, but pets are very important. You need to know your pets, and is there someone else that can care for your pets? Generally, shelters will include some form of pet care. It's not going to be the pet staying in the shelter with you or sleeping on the cot with you, but it will be some form of pet care. It might be cages or crates, cages or crates outside the shelter, but the Red Cross will not allow pets in their shelters for lots of good reasons. So for fire safety, no two ways out. Always no two ways out. Which we're all going to come and go the same way we do day in and day out, but what's that second emergency way out? Have a meeting place. Again, seniors are more at risk of dying in a fire than any other age group. We know that, so it's so very, very important for seniors to have a good fire safety plan. Leading causes of fires: careless cooking, smoking, unsafe use of candles. You know what I say leading causes of fire are? Women and children. All of those things are careless. Somebody did something unsafe. Somebody did something unsafe and caused the fire. So the root cause, men, women, and children, right? If you have the choice to live in a building with fire sprinklers, please take advantage of that choice. Fire sprinklers are truly life-saving devices. Cooking safety is important. So it's so important. Never leave the stove unattended. It's that simple. If you leave the stove unattended, and you're in the room when something's on the cooktop, something in the oven, you're there, you can effectively manage it sooner than it gets into the cabinets and the walls and spreads throughout the house. And then, as I said earlier, we want you to evacuate immediately upon fire alarm or any other sign of fire. You know, we've seen so much of this, and unfortunately, in the last few years, you know, the Sunquist explosion. How many of you remember seeing that nursing home, the senior facility being evacuated, people wheeled down Main Street in their beds and wheelchairs and what have you? Very, very sad situation. You know, that's we know is the emergency responders that anytime a senior housing is involved, apartment or a nursing home is involved, I mean, it's a huge task. It just takes great resources. And again, I think it's a very sad situation when those kinds of things happen. They do happen. We do everything we can to prevent that from happening, but as we saw in the Sun Prairie explosion, it's just part of reality. And when it goes south in a hurry, right? The 2018 flooding, talked about that, and then the 2019 fire outage. You know, we've learned from all of them in terms of emergency management and first responders, and I think there's lessons for all of us, everyone living in the community from those events. Okay, that does wrap up my part of the presentation. Mike, do you want to have questions now or at the end? Probably at the end.
Would you have any questions, folks? If you have questions for Ed, feel free to unmute yourself and chime in.
I guess. Oh, go ahead, please. Well, I was just going to say that I can add personal experience in some of these cases. Our daughter and son-in-law and grandson and their 3 pets were victims of the 2018 flood. The water absolutely exploded into their house, filled their basement in a matter of a few minutes, and started coming up into the first floor. They were putting ladders on the roof to save themselves when the firefighters arrived and helped them get out. And they moved in with us while they were rebuilding for over a year. You know, they were lucky to have a family so that night they were at our house, and they were there for probably 18 months. They lost 1 pet in the flood and had to place 2 others. One came with us and one came with another daughter, or went with another daughter. But it's good to have that backup, and they were lucky that they had that backup. But this happened in an instant. I mean, it was 0 to 60 in just a few minutes, and terribly frightening event. So anyway, does anybody else have any questions for Ed before I get started? Okay. Well, my name is Jim Jenkins, and I was a criminal investigator with the state of Wisconsin for 32 years. And after I retired, I worked for Dane County for a while, and I worked for the school district for a while. And I was a Red Cross disaster volunteer for about 14 years, I think, responding to things that Ed's troops were busy on the scene putting out fires. And I did respond also to Hurricane Katrina, and we wound up with a Katrina dog who was a wonderful, wonderful pet who had been lost in the flood for several weeks. And so we've been involved with that kind of thing too. So anyway, I'll bring up my portion of this. Which hopefully will show up here. There we go. I'm going to talk about winter preparedness. And Ed covered an awful lot of this. So, I'll try not to be duplicative, although some of the points are important enough to make again, I think. And what I'm going to cover are winter storms, power and heat outage, safe driving, safe walking. And of course, this is particularly important during the pandemic. Things have changed so much. First of all, winter storms. And we're going to talk about preparing your home, preparing your communications, planning for your pets, and planning for cleanup. If you know storms are on the way, and they're going to be on the way this year, one of the real important things is to have your home weatherproofed. Make sure that you have good insulation, that you have good window protection, whether it's storm windows or thermopane windows, or even plastic covering over the windows. Inspect your furnace. Probably all of the furnace companies in town, or the HVAC companies, will come in and check things over, usually for free or a minimal price. Make sure that your chimney and your flue are clear and clean. Okay. If a storm is coming in particular, it's a good idea to have plenty of food, medication, and warm clothing. And that's why our grocery stores are always jammed the nights before storms hit. And it's good to be prepared even before that, maybe in winter, to stock up a little bit more on things like non-perishables, canned goods, and so on. Finally, keep flashlights and radios handy, and they should be battery operated and have backup batteries. Okay. Communications, as Ed said, very, very important. And we're so lucky now that we have cell phones, which are more mobile and can be used in lots of situations. And our cell phones are really computers as well. But you've got to have them charged up. So keep them charged, keep them handy. It's good to have a corded landline in your home. I know a lot of people are moving away from that, but a corded landline doesn't rely on your power source. If the power goes out, you still got phone contact. With our cell phones, of course, you ultimately have to recharge them. You can use your car to do that as well, though, if you go out to the car and plug it in and run the car, as long as you make sure that you've got your windows open, while you're doing it. One thing to know is that you can text 911. And if you're familiar with texting, it uses much less power than phone calls. So if you're trying to conserve power and you need to call 911, you can do it that way. And as Ed said, plan on who you're going to contact for help. and for information, and have those phone numbers handy, and have talked to those people in advance so that you're prepared to do it. Okay, and some of the contacts that you need to know are 911, obviously, police, fire, EMS, the Red Cross, who will come and assist you, doctors and veterinarians, your pharmacy, your building management, if you're in a multi-unit building. And so keep a list handy of those folks. We've talked about pets. Keep them inside with you. Don't have them outside in a dog house or chained up in foul weather. If it's uncomfortable for you, it's probably uncomfortable for them. Have supplies handy, have ample food for your dogs and kitties. And find out where you'll take them if you have to evacuate. Like Ed said, the Red Cross was highly criticized after Katrina for not caring for pets. For a few months, we tried to establish pet areas and shelters. We had some very bad experiences with that. I was involved with one in the 2008 floods in western Wisconsin, where a little boy who was staying at the shelter went out to the pet shelter and wanted to pet a strange dog, and he was attacked and bitten very badly in the face. And so the Red Cross couldn't continue to do things like that because of the dangers of injury. So have a place to take your pets. One of the things that we did, we used to be dog park people when we had a dog, and got to know other people real well. Find folks that would take our pets and we'd take theirs in an emergency. One thing you could do is to contact your vet now and find out what resources are available in Madison, Dane County, or whatever area you're in to take your pets. Finally, plan for cleanup. Who's going to shovel or plow you out? As we get older, shoveling gets more difficult and more dangerous. And if you can afford it, it's nice to have someone that you know who does this routinely for you. We are required to do it, as you see the second point there. At least in Madison, we have to clean up by the following day at noon. And it is enforced if there are complaints. And it's a safety issue for people that are walking. So at any rate, plan for this. If you do have a snow blower, have it filled with gas beforehand. Make sure that it runs, okay? If you hand shovel, that's kind of dangerous, and you've got to learn the proper techniques. Here's a little picture of proper snow shoveling techniques. It's good to warm up beforehand. Remember to bend your knees, keep your back straight. People throw out their backs very commonly shoveling snow. Okay, so take a good broad stance, just like an athletic event. Use your legs to lift with. Push if you can rather than lift, and take lots of breaks. Okay, we commonly have heart attacks with people shoveling snow. Power outage. My family was around for the 1977 outage, which is, I think, kept people without power in some parts of the county for about a week, I think. We were lucky enough that we could go to family members who had power in another town and stay there for a little while. And again, that was a backup plan that worked for us. Have batteries and battery powered radios handy, and have plenty of backup batteries. Have non-perishable food and water. And again, you can't plan for a power outage. You don't know when it's coming. So it's good to have a stock of food and water. They say 1 gallon per person per day for 3 days. Have good adequate insulation in your home, and not just your home, but your pipes. We've had pipe freezes that did massive damage in our house years ago, and led to mold and all sorts of headaches. So it's good to take a little time and effort and money to prepare in advance so you don't have to deal with that afterwards. You should have a CO2 or a CO detector on each level of your home, 5 feet off the ground, near bedrooms and or attached garages. Storm windows and window covers. Know how to shut off your water, okay? Learn how to open your power garage door manually. Okay, here are some numbers to report outages. And in our area, it's MG&E and Alliant. And if you want to take a second to jot down those numbers if you need them, or you can do a save screen, photograph it. Okay, what to do during an outage? Okay, it's going to get cold. Wear warm clothes and a hat. Keeping your head warm is real important. Okay. Unplug appliances to avoid damage when power is restored. Particularly important if you're cooking something. Turn that off. Close and seal doors and windows. You can do it with towels, anywhere there are cracks. Let your faucets drip. You know, lesson that we've learned, again, because we had cracked pipes. Forgot to leave one of the faucets dripping, and that led to it. Very important. Make sure that any heating source you use is well ventilated, okay? A fireplace that's built for your house, although I think fireplaces usually suck out more heat than they provide. Again, wood stoves will work to heat your house if you have one. Ed talked about generators being a very, very dangerous way to heat your house. Anything that isn't ventilated, things like you know, a Weber grill or something. People have used those, and you know that without ventilation, that could kill you very quickly. If you have municipal water, turn your faucets off. If you use a generator, make sure it's properly ventilated, okay? Sleeping bags and wool blankets are best for sleeping. Blankets and wear a cap. Text rather than call if possible. Use your phone sparingly for help. And eat high-calorie, non-perishable food like nuts, fruits, and trail mix. Okay, safe winter driving. And we're going to talk about preparing your car, driving in snow and ice, long distance trips, and what to do if you get stuck. Okay, to prepare your car for winter driving, make sure that your basic equipment is working properly. Your battery, your tires, brakes and fluids, your lights, your windshield wipers and washers, and your heat, okay? And again, you can, you know, for a fairly low cost, take it to your garage mechanic and have them take a look and make sure that everything is operating correctly. If you're going to be driving in winter, make sure you've got blankets, warm clothing, boots, flashlight, an ice scraper, a cell phone and charger, and so on in your car. Okay, you can charge your cell phone with cables that plug into your cigarette lighter area in your car, and it's a good idea to have one of those. Okay, one of the things that we've found for our car is a little mini collapsible snow shovel that we've got a couple of them for each car, and that can help dig your way out if you get stuck. Have a half a tank of gas or more, okay? And never warm your car in the garage in winter. That can lead to, you know, asphyxiation. Driving in snow and ice. First of all, if you don't have to go, don't go. Stay home. If you have to drive, clear your glass and lights, and take time to do it. I know we're often in a hurry, and you see people on the road, and they've just got that front part in front of the driver's windshield scraped off, and everything else is still iced up, and your vision is really limited then. Be slow and smooth in everything you do. And that's real important. You so often see people that are trying to get out of, a deep snow, and where they're stuck, and they're racing their engine, and they're spinning their back wheels, and that just makes it worse. And 4-wheel drive is certainly no panacea. Maybe most of us now have all-wheel or 4-wheel drive, and that helps in deep, loose snow. But it's not going to help you brake any faster. It's not going to help you on ice. It's not going to help you corner any more safely. So that you're going to have to be slow and very methodical in everything that you do. When you're braking, you're going to have to brake earlier. So you're going to have to give more distance between you and the car in front of you. Brake with firm and steady pressure. And understand how your anti-lock brakes work. It's kind of an upsetting thing when those things kick in, because they sort of judder, and they're braking for you. They're pumping the brakes for you, and they're providing steady pressure. But you can sort of panic when you first hear that, take hold. Again, if you get stuck, go very, very light on the gas, and the old method of rocking the car from park to drive, but just little bit of pressure on the gas back and forth will help you the most. If you're going long distance, again, check the weather and cancel your trip if you can, if the weather is going to be bad. Make sure your car is prepared. It's even more important when you're out on the highway to have blankets and warm boots and hats and things like that in the car. Get radio updates on the weather, and make sure that you're connected with your cell phone and your charger cord. Let friends and family know where you're going and when you expect to arrive, and make sure that you call when you get there. If you do get stuck, stay with your car. You can call for help on a cell phone, and you can call 911. You can call AAA. You can use your OnStar or similar services if you have in your car. And it'd be good to familiarize yourself with that stuff now. I know we use AAA. We've used it for years. They've always been very reliable at helping us out. If you try to dig out, the same things apply as they do when you're shoveling snow, the same dangers. Plus, you may be on the roadside. So it's important to be very, very careful if you try to dig out. Nice to have flares, keep an interior light on. A lot of portable radios now have a flasher on them that you can use in your back window or something that flashes red. It's not perfect, but it helps. Putting a flag on the antenna. If you keep the interior light on with your engine running and your windows open, it doesn't cause a great deal of battery drain. Okay, make sure that the exhaust pipe is clear, because otherwise those exhaust gases are going to leak into the interior of the car. And finally, stay warm. Wrap in blankets and warm clothes. Run your engine and use the heater sparingly with the window open or cracked. During the pandemic, the first question again, always, must you travel? Know the local health situation at your destination, not just at your home area. Mask and social distance, wash and sanitize your hands. And if you're sick, please stay home. Safe walking. And I think we've all probably gone upside down on the ice or snow at one time or another. So we're going to talk about preparing to walk, safe walking techniques, and what to do if you fall. Okay, preparing to walk. Have proper equipment. Have good winter shoes. And most of us now don't, wear leather-soled shoes anymore. Those can be really treacherous out on the snow and ice. But stable shoes with good traction, warm, light-colored clothes, and walking sticks or canes are real important. I know I go out with hiking sticks when I'm walking in winter. I'll even bring one when I walk the dog. And finally, traction cleats. If you know what we're talking about, I think the main brand is Yak Trax. I'll have a little slide about that in a second. Plan your route where you're going to walk and tell someone where you're going and when you expect to get there and be back. And here are a couple of ads for Yak Trax on Amazon. And you can see that I think a pair of Yak Trax is going for, the basic ones are $18, and the more stable ones that wrap above your foot are $26.15. And I use those all the time. Again, when I'm walking the dog or going to the dog park or anything like that, they're just amazing how, they slip on over your shoes, and they've got these wires, or some of them have little spikes, and they really dig into snow and ice. They're a little uncomfortable to wear on cement, on concrete. It's not going to hurt you any. Don't wear them in the house though. You'll slip and fall on linoleum or tile, things like that. What I do is I have an old pair of shoes that I always have the Yak Trax on, and I can just slip into those when I go outside. And maybe you've heard about this. People are talking about it a lot in the last couple of years. Walking like a penguin if you are outside. Okay. First of all, you're gonna, whenever you're outside, anticipate falling. You're gonna want to walk very slowly, bend a little bit. Again, always bending at your knees. The athletic stance is good for just about everything you do. And walk flat-footed. Okay. You don't go heel toe, just walk flat-footed with your feet pointed out a little bit like a penguin walks. And keep your center of gravity over your feet as much as possible, as low as possible. Watch where you're stepping. Okay, look for patches of ice, and they often look like just a little water stain on the sidewalk, but that could be black ice. Take shorter shuffle-like steps. Keep your arms at your sides. Don't have your arms in your pockets, okay? If you do fall, first of all, you're going to have better balance with your arms out. And if you do fall, it can offer some protection. And go very, very slowly. So remember that. Walk like a penguin. If you do fall, look for an out. And this, again, when I'm walking out in the snow and I have to be out there because I've got the dog, I am always looking for what snow pile I can roll over into if I go down. And you stay loose if you can. If you stiffen up, you're going to be more likely to injure yourself. Protect your head, okay? That's the thing that can hurt you the most. Turn and roll with the fall. And this is something you learn in martial arts and things like that. You'll learn how to fall. And that involves rolling, because then you're using the motion of the fall to sort of slow you down and protect you. Okay, your arms and legs slightly bent, and get rid of anything that you've got in your hands. You don't have to save that package. Okay, guys, now I've got a couple things here on hypothermia and frostbite, but I think we're up to the point where period is over. I think that frostbite is something that you should always be aware of. You've got to be wearing gloves. Signs of frostbite are the blood leaving your fingers, very pale appearance in your fingers and your extremities. And if you do feel you've got frostbite, very slowly warm the areas. Okay, use warm water, not hot water. You can do a lot of damage if you plunge them right into hot water. Okay, you're going to feel it tingle and even some painful tingling when it's coming out of frostbite, but that's a sign that it's warming up. And of course, you know, seek medical help if this continues. So that's about it for my area. Does anybody have any questions of me or comments or anything like that?
Let me jump in just a second before we get the questions going. I want to flash a poll here to everyone, and please give us a little feedback on the presentation today while we do questions. Okay, I wanted to ask Ed, you know, when you send rescues out onto the highway, what do you find is the most common problem with people that you're rescuing? I mean, what have they done wrong that has gotten them into trouble?
In terms of winter.
In terms of winter, you know, somebody's
following too close, you know.
Following too close.
Yeah, that really, you know, it's yeah, that your stopping distance just quadruples in severe weather, and most people don't realize that. They may realize it, but they don't want to heed the warning, you know, because
yeah, and again, don't feel real secure because you have four-wheel drive. I don't know how many times when I was, you know, still working, and I worked all over the state and we had to travel in all conditions, how many times I would see people in the ditch with their four-wheel drives. And it was most often, it seemed like four-wheel drives that were in the ditch. So it's sure not a panacea. It'll help you get out of loose snow if you're going very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Driving too fast and driving too close.
Are people prepared in their cars in case they do go off the side or if they have an accident? I see a lot of people don't even wear jackets anymore when they go out in the winter.
Yeah, you know, when was it? When was we had that huge backup on the interstate? Was that 2008?
No, 2000, I think it was 8. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and you know, we saw people weren't prepared. That was one of those situations that came upon the county really quick, and it was just that slight grade between, what is it, between Stoughton and Madison?
Yeah.
Interstate, that a couple trucks side by side couldn't make the hill, and it just backed up, and people were out on the interstate for 14 hours.
Yeah.
The fortunate thing about that is that they were close to urban areas. You get, you know, stranded out in parts of the state. You look at, you know, like between here and, or between, say, you know, like maybe even Verona and, say, Platteville. There's some pretty far, long stretches of road where you're just out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Or up north.
You really, again, it's got the whole idea of self-preservation. You need to take care of yourself. You need to plan to take care of yourself, because it's a long way away.
That day we got stuck in 18 inches of snow that day, which is exactly what people were getting stuck in here. But we were in Arizona, which you wouldn't expect. We were in the mountains and got stuck at the Grand Canyon in 18 inches of snow. So it can happen other places too. Any other questions for us? I know we kind of, you know, crammed a couple of presentations into one here, and, you know, covered it pretty quickly. Anybody have any stories to tell about their experiences or suggestions or anything that we didn't cover? Okay. Well, I, for one, would like to thank everybody for your attention, and I hope you got something out of this. And thanks to Triad for putting this together.
Well, I want to thank Ed and Jim and all of you for attending. I mean, this is valuable information that hopefully you can pass on to your friends and family, you know, as you go about your day. We will have the recording of this on our YouTube channel in a few days. And so You can watch it again, watch part of it. I'll try to put in bookmarks so that we talk, you have some guide through the hour plus of information here, and you're able to share it with others too. So Ed, Jim, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and goodbye, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.
Okay, so long.
You all know where to find the fire department. If you have any other questions, reach out. Y'all have a good day.
Will do. Thank you.